Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Writing the Rapids, the show where I, Joe Bielecki, talk to writers about writing. Very often, those writers have been recommended to me by writers who have previously been on the show. In the case of this month's guest, Mae Murray was recommended to me by Michael Tichy, so if you liked those episodes I did with him, stick around for this one, and if you like this one, go back and listen to those. Mae Murray is a writer and editor hailing from Arkansas, now living in Erie, New England. She occasionally contributes essays and film criticism to Fangoria.com and Dread Central. She's the recipient of the 2022 Brave New Weird Award for Superior Achievement in Short Fiction. The Book of Queer Saints Volume 1 was her editing debut with a 2023 British Fantasy Award nominee in the Best Anthology category. The Book of Queer Saints Volume 2 is out now as well, and her debut novel is I'm Sorry If I Scared You. Before we get into the show, I'll remind you that you can support it over at patreon.com/noisemakerjoe. For just $2 a month, you get these episodes a little bit earlier than everybody else. You can toss me a one-time donation over at paypal.me/noisemakerjoe, and you can buy my book. It's called Tired. It's on Amazon, and it's pretty good. If you don't want to or can't spend any money, word of mouth is really the only way anybody hears about this show, it seems, so make the words from your mouth loud and convincing. Like and subscribe, and leave a little alien emoji in the comments section of wherever you're getting this episode. Now, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Mae. Let's start out with I'm Sorry If I Scared You, because as we kind of joked about while I was briefing you, I managed to read this book kind of simultaneously as if the things happening were metaphor and literal. In way older episodes of this, I have talked at length, it feels, about how at some point I read some author interview about his book, and he talked about how, like, even if things that I write feel metaphorical, everything that I describe in the book is happening literally, and that's how you should read the book. And for whatever reason, when I read that in my mid-20s, I was like, that's how I have to read books now. And that has done me a lot of good, greatly. I have also more recently talked about wondering if I have kind of hamstrung myself a little bit when it comes to analyzing literature. And for whatever reason, within the bounds of I'm Sorry If I Scared You, it was comfortable for me to say, all right, we got a weird fetus thing. Let's take a look at that. And so I'm curious to you if kind of where on that spectrum of like everything in the book is literal or should be taken metaphorically, where you tend to sit within your own work and even as a reader too.
Yeah, I mean, I would never want to tell somebody, this is how you should read this book, right? But I like what you said about reading it simultaneously as metaphor and literal, because I feel that if as a reader, that's how I would be reading it. As a writer, that's how I wrote it. So yeah, where does it fall on the spectrum? I think like smack dab in the middle. There's a lot going on that's very real and very rooted in the culture of the South and the culture that I grew up in and that I experienced growing up. And there's also a lot of things about the South that I feel like, and like the way that you feel as someone disenfranchised in the South, that can only be explained through metaphor. Or that can only be experienced by another person through metaphor.
Okay, that's interesting. The shifting perspectives within this novel were interesting to me, because shifting to Baby's perspective kind of made it seem like, I mean, like literally, Odie is kind of blacking out. Right. But it also feels like, well, my experience being around people with PTSD and hearing them talk about, I blacked out and picked up a coffee table and threw it against the wall, and I have no remembrance of that happening. I just heard a loud noise, and suddenly it was 5 minutes later, and the living room's a mess. Like, that felt very much like, oh, this could be what's happening. But it also, like, you know, a fetus was in a water bottle and crawled back up inside of this woman. So, like, it could just be a magical alien fetus piloting a human.
Yeah, I mean, will we ever know?
And I certainly don't need to. You know, I think, you know, I think the internet, YouTube particularly, has exhausted me on the idea that, like, I need to know what happened ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you were saying about the South, both in the book and just now. I'm pretty sure I've been to Arkansas. I think my brother lived in Baton Rouge for a while, shortly after college, working at a company he had previously interned for, and I'm pretty sure when he interned for them, he was interning at an Arkansas location. And I don't remember too much about it, except driving down this byway with lots of old trees covering the road, and it being different trees from the Midwest, or feeling different, I guess. And I've lately been kind of digging around on the internet trying to wrap my brain around various regional Gothics, the aesthetics therein and whatnot. So I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say about all that.
Well, I think that, you know, when you talk about Southern Gothic literature, a lot of people don't think of Arkansas first. And I also think, like, when you think about America, the United States, the South, even poverty, the first thing people think about is not Arkansas. People just don't think about that state at all. I mean, I live in Massachusetts now, and I have for 11 years, and there have been times where I said I'm from Arkansas, and people are like, from where? You know? Or I thought it was pronounced Arkansas. Like, nobody knows Arkansas. But I think, having grown up there and my family having lived there for many generations, literally like a couple hundred years, yeah, like, it's, that land is in my blood, and that land is part of me. Even though I don't live there anymore, I still kind of feel this draw to it. And I think part of it is there's also like a mythical quality. Like, that's where my family is buried. That's the land of my ancestors. And there's a lot going on there. Like, it's almost, I tried to paint this portrait in the book, that there's a feeling of lawlessness in the rural Arkansas area. Like, it's very much distrustful of cops, very like dog eat dog survival. People, you know, people will ask you for $1 so that they can get something to eat, you know, and that's a day by day like reality, where you're just going day by day, dollar by dollar. And that's the reality of my family. And it's a unique kind of poverty that I haven't even encountered here. Like, of course I encounter, you know, houseless people, unhoused people here. But I don't know, it's like a unique kind of poverty that I don't, in this moment, really know how to explain in words.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, because the East Coast feels old, like capital letters old to me, kind of in the same way that part of the South feels old to me. I mean, they're two different kinds of old, but living in Michigan, it doesn't feel old like that. Like, obviously there's history of people here going back 12,000 years.
Right.
And maybe it's because I live near a city and kind of always have lived in the suburbs or near a city and not out in the rural areas of Michigan, even though I'm familiar with those areas. But even like those being all farmland, like there's something about like the lack of trees and lack of the sea that makes the place feel out of time somehow, and also kind of anonymous.
Yeah.
So I find it like hard to imagine necessarily feeling connected to like the physical land quite so much. Also, like my family has only just barely been here for 100 years, right? We came to Michigan from Poland and Hungary in the like 1910s, right? Like we came to do furniture stuff in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is why people came here at that time. I've got a little connection to Connecticut, but like it's barely. I'm Polish and Hungarian as far as, you know, without doing the white person. I'm going to tell you how many percentages, whatever I am. But as such, and this is another theme that has come up from time to time on the podcast, is like in terms of identity, it is hard for me to relate in kind of a specific way to writing that feels grounded in place and grounded in group identity, like this book is, and really enjoyed it because of course this is probably the only book I've read set in Arkansas. So like there are parts of it that feel familiar in terms of like the community that is there, but another sort of like disconnect or difficulty that is just one of those things that's like, I don't know if I will be able to really like truly feel that, right? Like I know it's felt, I believe that it's there. It's a kind of mystical experience, right? Like if someone who meditates all the time tells you about what it's like to meditate and you don't, it's hard to grip it. And unlike meditation, I can't just pick up having family graves from the 1800s in my hometown.
Yeah, I think my white ancestors came here on the Mayflower. So that's kind of, they moved across and down through the Carolinas, through Tennessee into Arkansas, where they've been for a couple hundred years now. And there's, you know, I like that you bring up identity because it is something that I struggle with too, like on a personal level, because there's a kind of common situation, I suppose you could say, in the South. It's a common experience in the South that people are of mixed heritage. So they're, especially where I'm from, which is the Mississippi River Delta, which, you know, runs up through Louisiana and through Arkansas, and of course, Mississippi. And there are a lot of people of mixed heritage who are white, Black, and Indigenous, and you are left, and obviously it wasn't okay to be with a person of another race. So there are a lot of adoptions and a lot of, you know, kind of shuffling people around, illegitimate children, adoptions that aren't on record, or people who are passing as white, so they're saying they're white, and that's a very pervasive thing in my family as well. So even with these roots in this history, and even that this is a fairly common experience in the South, it's not one that I feel that we really talk about a lot. So there is like a strong sense of identity, maybe not a racial identity, but like a strong sense of identifying with maybe your position in life, and your family's position in life. I mean, growing up, it was no, I mean, we knew we were poor. It's what, like that's how we identified. We were,
Mm-hmm.
we're a poor family in the rural South. Um, so I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's nuance to identity, I suppose. Where like my husband, he's half Irish, half Italian, and we live in the greater Boston area, which is a very common experience, but there's still this unmoored kind of feeling. Like, yes, there's a sense of identity in the fact that, they immigrated here in the early 1900s, but there's an unmooring. And I feel like no matter where you're from, you can feel that, I wish there was more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have mentioned to one of my female friends this feeling that I have of jealousy that like among women it tends to feel like there is kind of like an implicit community. And granted, not all women are cool with each other, and you can't just as a woman walk up to any other woman and know that she's part of the sisterhood or whatever, but like and this was at like a lonelier feeling part of my life too, that I was just kind of like, it just like, within the bounds of media, at least the idea that a woman can walk into a bathroom at a bar and like find a friend or get some help or whatever, is something that seems like it would be nice to have, even though I understand why it exists and I don't want why it exists to be the case. Where it seems like as a white guy, the only time people are kind of comfortable with you that way is when they are being gross, and that is unfortunate. So like, I don't know, identity is always kind of a weird thing for me to think about in a lot of different ways, because I don't necessarily want to walk around being like proud of the markers I have that people normally use to be proud of, or to exhibit, whatever. I don't necessarily want to, if I want to find a community of my peers specifically looking for a group of white dudes to be friends with is not necessarily going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah. Just put an ad out. I'm looking for a group of white dudes.
Young white man looking for white male
for
friendships.
Other young white men.
I need people to discuss our shared experience with.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So yeah, like, I don't know. I also wonder, did you ever listen to the podcast S-Town?
You know what? Somebody recommended it to me, but I never listened to it.
Okay, that's fine. It might even take place. It was kind of like, oh man, Serial was a hit. Let's try to do something similar. I think it was even an NPR thing. Okay, it's Alabama. Never mind. Those are different places. But anyway,
listen, it happens all the time. That's what I was talking about.
They both start with an A. They're both in the South. They must be exactly the same. But I remember being kind of like very enchanted by the cast of characters who show up. All these weird Southern guys who, like the clockmaker who goes crazy and has a rose garden labyrinth and gets tattooed because he likes the pain. Like it was kind of this very like Southern Gothic, and probably a lot of people's first exposure to anything within that realm. And I remember thinking it was kind of a masterpiece. And then reading an article basically being like, it's not cool to gawk at poor Southern people the way that a lot of people talking about this podcast are doing. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe am I doing this? And I don't know, I must have been like 22 at the time, so I was very much within that mode of like checking everything I did to make sure it wasn't an ism or a phobia.
Yeah, make sure it's cool.
Yeah, I need to make
Yeah.
sure that, the way I'm liking this podcast is socially acceptable. But even still, like the idea of the sort of these small pockets of community that are within America but feel on the frontier somehow is very interesting to me, like aesthetically. Again, even as the reality is very different. And then you throw aliens in, and I'm sold. Like, I was so stoked that the prologue was essentially a transcript of a radio show broadcast, like a local coast-to-coast sort of knockoff show that had gotten their hands on a recording of someone getting abducted by aliens. That is how you get me to read a book.
I can't remember who I talked to about this, but I went to college in Arkansas, and we were the only college that had a television studio on campus, and we broadcast on local TV. My degree was in mass media, so I had to do radio, television. I did audio for TV. I did camera work, and we had to also learn how to write scripts for television and radio. So that part of the book, I think it came kind of as an afterthought, really. Like, I was like, well, I need to set this up. I need it to not be so random. There needs to be some precedent here. And that was hands down the most fun part of the book to write, because the book is pretty dark. Like, I mean, it's funny, but it's dark, and it's dealing with a lot of dark stuff. But that opener, like, if I could write an entire book that's just like that opener, like a found footage, found audio, that's on my bucket list. Yeah.
100%. I have a broadcasting degree, so I love that stuff. Found footage is like my favorite subgenre of horror.
Same.
Like the standard of quality I have is like way lower too. Like, it can be a pretty bad movie, and I'm still gonna watch it, and maybe once or twice. It was interesting to me too, kind of how much or how little like alien stuff there was, depending on how alien baby is. It was almost like, I can't think of a good touch point, but it feels like a trope or a story structure that I kind of expect to see more of in the coming years, of this, like, the world's ending, but I got shit to do, or like, aliens are abducting people, there's crop circles, whatever, but like, I got work on Monday. Like, we can't just drop everything and Scooby Gang it. Like, what did I see in the sky? I don't know, man, but like, I'm late for my shift.
Right, exactly. Yeah, when I talk about the alien portion of the book, it's so hard to not just be like, this is what it means, But I can say what it means to me is that it represents these cosmic forces beyond your control that just happen. And that if you're in a certain situation, like if you're living in poverty, and it is that dog eat dog survival kind of world, that shit's happening, and you just have to keep going, And I didn't think of it at the time when I was writing it about how it reflects like the way that people are feeling right now. It certainly reflected the way that I felt growing up in that situation, but now it is kind of a broader, relatable feeling for most people. It's like a feeling of helplessness, and like there are just these unstoppable forces that are beyond you. You can't do anything about it, but there are some things you can do. So you just have to do those things. And our trio definitely does those things.
Yeah. So I also want to talk about the revenge of it all. Kind of speaking of like me being in my 20s and wanting to make sure I have all the right opinions, like I don't know. I remember seeing like one Tumblr post a while ago, like, you know, again, in my late teens, early 20s, hashtag feminism, that was essentially like, I Spit on Your Grave is not a feminist film. Rape revenge films are not feminist. And may or may not have even had much more to say than that. But again, being the type of person I was at the time, I was like, well, okay, I guess I won't watch those and think they're feminist films.
I agree. I saw it on the internet, and so I must agree.
I assumed a woman said it, so I listened and I believed them.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, haven't interrogated that thought at all. Like, certainly wouldn't have gotten in an argument with anybody about it at any point in time. But
Right.
reading this book and having recently started following you on social media, I've noticed that is not only a kind of subgenre that this book falls within, but one that you enjoy to consume too. So I don't need you to dispute a Tumblr post from 2018 or whatever, but I'm interested to kind of hear your opinion on the topic.
So, first of all, I Spit on Your Grave is one of my favorite movies. But I also understand why there are people who find it repulsive, difficult to watch, difficult to think of in a positive way. I understand the negative opinions about it, and I think that the negative opinions about it are pretty much for the same reason I have positive opinions about it, because for women, it's just an intensely personal thing. If you think about the rate at which women are sexually assaulted, 1 in 4, that's a very, very large amount of the population. If you think about the women you know in your life, 1 in 4.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So that's why when people have negative things to say about it, I'm not going to get into an argument with them about why I think it's good. It's just something that for me felt personally cathartic. I think not all rape revenge movies are made equal, so I wouldn't say that all of them are good. But that one, for some reason, I saw it at a time. I saw it at a time in my life where I had experienced a sexual assault not long before that. And I think for some reason, especially when I was in my 20s, my idea of healing was like almost like re-traumatizing myself, like challenging myself. Like you're strong, you've got this, you can do this, you can do anything. And I think there's a part of me that's always kind of like daring myself to withstand things that are most uncomfortable for me. But then there's the revenge aspect where, you know, you come out of a situation and really I started writing a version of this book when I was in college, and this was before my own sexual assault, because I grew up in a home where there was sexual abuse going on, not me, but in a home where that was happening. And I witnessed it, and growing up having witnessed it, I wanted revenge on the person who was doing that to someone that I loved. And so when I was in college, I was taking screenwriting. I started writing a screenplay, and it was just called Revenge, which is funny because now there is a rape revenge movie called Revenge. But it was just called Revenge. And it was about someone who takes revenge on a person who was abusing their sibling.
Mm.
And that screenplay stuck with me these, over 10 years later. And my thoughts and opinions and the way that the story developed along with my own experiences with sexual assault. And that became, I'm sorry if I scared you, because I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm just kind of rambling. But there is this kind of part of you, and this happens in rape revenge films too, where the person, they just lose their fucking minds. Like they go through this thing and then they're so fucking angry. I mean, it's despair and it's anger, it's sorrow, it's everything, and they just lose their fucking minds. And it's scary, like they become scary. And so that's where the title came from, where you go through this horrific thing and you lose your mind for a bit. And that's certainly what happened to me. I just lost my mind for a bit. I spiraled for a couple of years. And I'm sorry if I scared you, but I was going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, the re-traumatizing yourself thing. I feel like a lot of horror fans are probably constantly doing exposure therapy on themselves, in one way or another.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the anthologies that you edited to, the Books of Queer Saints, Volume 1 and 2. Which are kind of saying similar things, where it's like we don't need to deal with our trauma in a like productive way that society finds acceptable. And I tend to agree with that point. I find that maybe if I had read it, I'm sorry if I scared you, a couple of years ago, I would have been more uncomfortable with it. Charlene Elsby has written a lot of books that are kind of like within this realm of like feminist novels where the female protagonist is not morally upstanding. And I remember having such a difficult time trying to like square that within myself. And you can hear it on the podcasts. Like if you listen chronologically, the several I've had with her, like you can hear me getting more and more comfortable talking to her.
Yeah.
Where at first I was like, I'm not sure what's happening.
I don't know what to say. How do you respond to this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me that like catharsis is fine. Like catharsis is part of like the feminist development process, right? And I've talked in a couple episodes ago about how I've been like digging around on Tumblr and how I've been exploring like girl blogging associated hashtags. And one I see a lot is like hell is a teenage girl. And I love just like scrolling through those associated hashtags and kind of like getting it, where it's this very much like, I know there's a problem. I know it's systemic. I know it has turned me into the person I am. And I both hate those forces and kind of hate myself. And so I'm blaming those forces for the parts of me that I dislike. And like no like revolutionary like turn, right? There's no like second half of the sonnet where it's like, and therefore I shall whatever. Like it's, bed rotting and wallowing and it feels nice for me at this point to kind of be able to like get that point, get the like I'm mad right now, and here's the art I'm making right now. And I think maybe, you know, like the sort of like the process novels or art pieces are, I guess, missing or under sung, which is maybe what Book of the Queer Saints is doing with those short stories, where it is like, you know, this isn't 50-year-olds saying how I turned my life around, how I healed from, you know, how I took whatever and turned it into a business or whatever sort of like TED Talky type stuff that you'd be used to. It is like, I'm in the mud right now. Here are the stories from the mud.
Right. Yeah. I love that.
And I guess like the only other type of stuff you get is like certain rap songs where it is like, I am currently in poverty, in the streets, in gangs right now, and it is dangerous. But you can easily make the argument that those have been kind of commodified to the point of fantasy anyway.
Well, certainly for billionaires, I'm sure. But yeah, you know, if you, well, you don't have to think that hard about it, but if you think about it, cis, white, straight, male horror writers have been taking out their anger and frustration on women and queer people in their writing for a long time. And I think that when women and queer people turn that around and reclaim it by writing their own stories, it becomes personally offensive or uncomfortable. It's a challenge for them to evaluate what they've done and what they've put into the world. But I think that with the Queer Saints specifically, it's not that what you write is meaningless, but that it doesn't have to be pretty all the time. It doesn't have to be a happy story. Good queer rep doesn't exist. That's something that we've made up. And part of it is because of the way that people who aren't queer have depicted queer people in media. So it's become this thing where it's bad to have any kind of negative association whatsoever. And both in media and in real life. But there's no amount of, this is something that Haley Piper says all the time, and I'm not going to get the direct quote right, 'cause she says it different ways, but there's nothing that you can do as a queer person or as a trans person that's going to make someone who hates you not hate you. So you might as well just do what the fuck you want.
Yeah. And like that, you know, that's similarly or simultaneously like liberating and terrifying, because like you don't have to deal with the consequences of masking who you are, but then you just have to deal with different consequences of people responding to who you are.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, bigots are gonna bigot, so right. Yeah. That's the point of that quote, is like, yeah, the people who are gonna hate you are gonna hate you, so just do you.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, kind of good for everybody in the social media age too. Like, you know, maybe you shouldn't be antagonizing over the specific way you liked a podcast from 2014. Maybe you should.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you should.
Maybe that shouldn't keep you up at night.
Yeah.
Well, we're also always learning and growing at all times.
Yeah.
And I think that that's another thing that, like, if we want to talk about social media, it's another thing that I don't really like about social media, because you do have those, you know, people will dig up something somebody who has a career now said 10 or 15 years ago, and then they have to defend it. And it's like, I was 14 when I posted that, like it's just, our standards for people are very different on the internet than they are in real life. Mm-hmm. Or I mean, maybe for some of those like really internet brained people, that's something that they uphold people in their own lives to that standard, but that's not how life works. No. And you're going to be really, really fucking lonely someday.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to find new friends if you have to read their diaries before you decide if you're going to be friends with them or not.
Yeah.
I think, one of the things that I think draws me to writing from marginalized people, regardless of the marginalizing factor, kind of is that seeing people who have had to decide how they're going to live, and then, like, I don't know, the just be yourself movies of the 90s, like, were fine and all that, but like it is interesting to see people who actually have stakes mm-hmm. talking about that and living it and going through it, and it makes the stories much more interesting, right? White guys who have never really had too many problems, like, get to do like fun existentialist theory fiction thought experiments and stuff, but can't really kind of go through the same type of adventures that other people pull their experiences from to create. I guess this is kind of like, it dovetails off of the argument I've heard against like reading conservative writers, which is just like, well, people who want to uphold the current structure aren't going to have very good imaginations about storytelling. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like there is a delight in seeing the imaginations of people who have been like forced into having spectacular imaginations, I think.
Yeah, I think, a lot of writers share that story of having grown up reading books and escaping through those books. It was 100% true for me, both with books and movies. Mm-hmm. And I think that I definitely dreamed of becoming a writer, but I didn't think that it would be something that was actually possible. Of course, I as a kid, I didn't know, and I didn't have that belief that I knew now, that is, if you want to write, you just write and put it out. That's just what you do, and you don't have to be beholden to any publisher, any agent, and you just do it. But back then I was reading, obviously, Stephen King, and I was reading Anne Rice, who was probably my biggest influence or inspiration, and thinking there's no way that I can be like them. But, like you were saying, that we're all bringing our own unique experiences from marginalized backgrounds. If you're from a marginalized background, you're bringing your own unique experience, and everything's coming to a head where we're able to actually discuss those things in a way that doesn't paint it up pretty for people to consume. It's more about putting other people in a position of feeling the way that it feels to be you.
Yeah. Force some empathy on them. I like that.
Yeah, force it. No, they can close the book if they want to. I'm sure people have closed mine. I know a lot of people are like, what the fuck when they read my book. So yeah, but I think that if you stick with it, if you think about it, maybe you'll get it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite a good book. Like, I mean, it's dark. It's got hard stuff to read, but like, I don't know. I have, I think only one book has ever made me cry, and it was one of Sam Richards' short stories. And I think I read it.
Which one was it?
Oh, I can't remember. It was probably the first or second one in his first collection. And I don't know, my daughter was probably like 1 or 2 at the time. And, my wife is sleeping next to me and I'm preparing for this podcast, reading this book, and I'm tired and I'm just weeping. But yeah, books for me have always kind of been like a safe place to handle things that I couldn't handle visually or experientially. I read a lot of fantasy novels as a kid. Like, I definitely would not do well in a hand-to-hand combat situation with bladed weapons. Like, just like in terms of constitution, like to say nothing of whatever combat skills I may or may not have.
Yeah.
Yeah, like like I think the first intestine I see, I'm out. Like, I just can't.
You're done.
There was like a whodunit exhibit for a while at my local museum, and there was this little tented area that was like, there's graphic imagery behind this tent, like, do not go in the tent if you don't want to see it. And it was like a video of a real autopsy, and I spent like 2 seconds in there and I was like, nope, can't do it.
You were done.
I couldn't do the pig's lung dissection in 4th grade. Like, I can't.
I couldn't. We had to dissect a frog, and I couldn't do that. And I literally did not go to school the day of the pigs. The day of the pigs, I did not go to school.
I was talking a big game until I saw a bunch of pink lumps on the desks, and then I dipped right out and said no thank you to that. My wife took an anatomy class. She at one point in high school had the dream of being like a forensic pathologist, something or other, forensic crime scene investigator, and they dissected cats.
God.
And she had a hard time.
I'm a cat mom. I could not do that.
Yeah, I believe it. She had a hard time, but she did it. She went through it, and I could not. And I mean, granted, I told her a million times that if it was me who had to be pregnant with our child, we would not be having kids. So, but yeah, this book, I feel like I don't want to sell it short and be like, it's not that disgusting. Because it's certainly rough in parts. But I do think that if someone is waffling on whether or not they should continue at certain points, I think if you push through, it's a rewarding read. I wanted to make sure that I brought up Dwayne, because he's such an interesting character. He's kind of silly to me. I guess his cartoonish penis is why I find him silly. But like, otherwise, he's such a fascinating third wheel character to Odie and Dale. I think it maybe is a little unfair to call him a third wheel because he has agency, but his inclusion is so fascinating to me. I love him so much. I would die for Dwayne.
Yes, so Dwayne is definitely based on somebody that I knew in college. Penis and all. Cartoonishly large penis and all. I really wanted to, I think that being a outspoken woman online, a lot of people can surmise that you think everything is misogyny and that you hate men and things like that. But I wanted to write an example of a unproblematic cis man that is really just as ride or die. He's for the girls, you know. He's a very fun character. He's kind of comedic relief in a way, which you don't really see a lot of. Like comedic relief, you usually think of like, okay, like the fat guy or the fat girl or the, like, I don't know. There's always like some kind of like marginalized character off in, you know, that is like the comedic relief. Like the black guy dies first, you know. But I wanted Dwayne to be like, not only is he a cis white man who identifies as straight, but he also has a very large penis and he knows how to use it in a way, and he's the comedic relief. It kind of like turns the idea of like what comedic relief is in a horror film or in a horror story on its head. I think you just don't get like a handsome looking guy who has a big dick as the comedic relief very often.
Yeah, he's just Ken. he's
literally just Ken, but he's just Dwayne.
Yeah, and he's just vibing. He's just hanging out.
He's rough around the edges. Yeah,
he's just
a little rough around the edges.
Yeah,
but he's there for like whatever's going down. He's there.
Yeah, he's just delightful. He's so great. He says near the end, something along the lines of, and I should have marked it, but something like, I think this is what I was meant to do. Like, kill rapists for my friends. And that was an interesting line for me, because it kind of got him close to like the white savior guy. Like if I hadn't had the whole book of him like just hanging out, just doing his thing, hanging out with his buddies, I would be a little suspicious of that. But again, like I think, you know, it's because you're like contextually playing off of like the culture, right? Like I think there are something I say a lot, especially being a husband and a father, is like, I would do anything to protect my family, and that includes creating the conditions where I never have to prove it, right? Especially like on TV and the sort of like prestige television era, like there is the dude who would do anything for his family, but he does everything possible to create the conditions where he does have to prove it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like, see, I killed all those people for you. And it's like, yeah, dude, but if you had just like gone to work, you would have, you wouldn't have had to. And, you know, Dwayne is very much just like, well, like, let's go do it. And, you know, I guess there's a difference between like making something about you and just enjoying the doing of it.
Yeah. Well, enjoying doing something for someone else.
Yeah.
I think that there's also kind of, with the three of them, they're very bonded to the point where I don't know how to verbalize this exactly, but they're like one unit, and gender and sexuality, it's all the same thing for this one unit. And they feel in a way like they're the same person, because they're so bonded, because they grew up in the same kind of circumstances. And there's also, you know, in the book, a sense of kind of purposelessness for the
Mm-hmm.
people who are living in that environment. Dwayne's character, I mean, he is just vibing, but he's just vibing because he doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Like he's just doing the best that he can
Mm-hmm.
in the circumstances that he lives in. So when this opportunity comes along to do something more with his life, I think he's pretty eager to take it,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it's in defense. It's for the benefit of his friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you said the 1 unit thing. That's kind of the thing I got during the three-way scene with them, with the pizza in the hotel room. Like,
With the pizza, yeah.
like it. There is this. There is a local poet who, at an open mic I went to, read this poem about like being a teen girl and kind of, not even like at the point yet where she's realizing that she's bi, but she's, like at these all girl slumber parties, this just like, we're friends and we're really good friends, so let's figure it out sort of thing.
Hmm.
And there wasn't really the curiosity of that within that scene, but like there is this, there's something really wholesome to me about friends who are really, really good friends like that. Sex or no, like the sort of like, I don't know, it's even kind of beyond the chosen family trope, which feels still kind of like, I kind of feel like that is more like for the reader to say, I'm part of this family.
Hmm.
Whereas these three, like, again, are sort of moving as one organism. Yeah, so I think that's part of why I liked his inclusion there, is to kind of have those mushier ideas about like relationships and sexuality portrayed in a way that I think about a lot but have a hard time seeing. Yeah, big fan of that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And then let's see. I want to make sure I got everything that I wanted to talk about. I think I might have. So let's talk about what you got going on next.
Sure.
You're gonna be part of a vampire anthology.
Yes. So I wrote a story called Blood and Oil for it's a queer vampire anthology called Blood, Sweat, and Queers. It's coming from Contrarian Publishing and release date October 7th.
Cool. That's a week before my birthday. If anybody's if anybody's out there,
If,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
if anybody wants to subscribe to your Patreon
Yeah,
for your birthday.
that's what I'm saying, and then I will be able to afford the book. It's not a steampunk vampire thing, is it? Because the word oil is in the title.
No,
Okay,
so
that's fine.
oh, you wanted a steampunk
I
vampire?
totally would have been here for a steampunk vampire queer short story.
Well, I mean, I don't really know what steampunk is. I know what the aesthetic is.
Yeah.
Like I know like if I see somebody out walking, I'm like, "Oh, that person likes steampunk." Like I
Hmm.
know what that looks like, but I don't know like what that would be like in a story. Like what are the qualities of steampunk?
I mean, it's got those costumes, but in a novel. It very much like, I don't know. I haven't read a ton of like contemporary, like this person set out to write a steampunk novel.
Hmm.
Earlier this year, I think I read one called Bone Shaker. And it
Sounds
was like
cool.
like a steampunk zombie thing. Like there was somebody built a giant steam powered mining thing, and there was a bunch of gas under the earth that turned people into zombies when they breathed it in, and his giant mechanical steampunk drill punctured the holes, and everyone's running around with gas masks, and it's, I don't know, it very much is just like an aesthetic. Like, I don't feel like
a vibe.
Yeah, it's just like, well, what if there were phones but no microchips? How would we do that sort of thing? So I think that's say that, like, nobody knows what steampunk is.
Nobody knows what it is. I mean, maybe this has, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's fantastical because there's a vampire in it, but it takes place, well, it starts at an oil refinery. And through oil drilling, this ancient indigenous creature is unearthed and begins to wreak havoc around the oil refinery, and ends up meeting a character called Darling, who becomes obsessed with it. Yeah.
I like that. Before we close this out, I want to ask you about Anne Rice. I, in my group chat, was chatting the other day, and I basically what it was I had seen a lot of, for whatever reason, the algorithm was giving me lots of sapphic vampire content. I think probably because
for whatever reason
I had been Googling Carmilla, because the book was brought up by like 2 people in the span of a couple of days to me. And the internet said, well, you're into vampire lesbians now, aren't you? I also think, this is, I guess, an aside, Instagram is convinced that I'm a trans man or a butch lesbian. Like, it does not, it will not accept that I'm a cis man. It, for whatever reason, like, I get ads for binders all the time. Even after I'm like, I don't need these guys. Please don't give me these ads anymore. Like, within 6 months, just comes back.
Maybe it's for someone who does need it.
Maybe.
I
guess I gotta start building nests. And I was like, why do I not see as many gay vampires? And my friend was like, well, that's all what Anne Rice does. And so, like, the way I understand the sapphic vampire trope, is probably poorly, but as like this, like, it's horrifying to men because it's a world where women just have each other and they don't need men, and for women it's an escape. And I was like, well, you could do a gay vampire story that's about, like, a vampire seducing a man, like, away from the patriarchy himself. Like, hey, dude, you don't have to go out to the sports bar and eat gross waffle fries and drink cheap beer. Like, you can be pretty with me, and we can read books and like have cats or whatever.
I think that in some ways that's what the AMC adaptation is doing right now. It is essentially the character Lestat, like, seduces Louis away from being a brothel owner in New Orleans. Like, a closeted brothel owner in New Orleans is like, no, come with me and be gay and immortal with me, and then that's that's what happens.